Everyone. Welcome to the session of Let Us Talk It webinar. We are extremely excited to have this webinar again today. Why I say again, because we have been doing this webinar for now 1.5 years and it's going strong. We just appreciate whoever joins in. They give us strong their honest feedback, and we build on that. And we all of you who have joined on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, please, if you could leave us your comments, your feedback, questions, we'll take it at the end of the session. And we definitely feel that uh, we are becoming a bigger community, stronger community with these webinars, because we are connecting to huge number of people. And with that, we just wanted to let you know that we do these professional webinars on work and life on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays from 12 to 1 p.m. EST, and on Fridays our Let Us Talk It Youth series from 4 to 5 p.m. EST. And if you want to present, or if you want to attend, please email us at webinar@letustalkit.com. And you can also, for youth, if you are a parent or you want your kid to participate, you can also email us at the same email ID. So with that, we welcome you once again, and we start today's topic. Our topic for today is web platform migration. From here to there, web migration from a business perspective. And we have with us Walid Rashid, who is the guest speaker today. And very first information, and that he is a new dad. Second time new dad, with a 19-year-old, a 19-month-old, and a 1-month-old, two daughters. So, with that introduction, the professional side of his is that he is a veteran of the technology industry from Silicon Valley, where he attended UC Berkeley and spent many years building teams and managing projects for various digital agencies and SaaS providers. His role have spanned PMO, marketing, sales, and success, while he currently leads partnership efforts in the Western US for Acquia, the open source digital experience platform. He has in the past also consulted for the government of Afghanistan and has first-hand expertise of the commodities mining sector with Central Asia. We would like to know more about the open source, more about web platform migration, and we are extremely honored to have your time. Walid, over to you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate everybody logged into the Zoom, streaming on YouTube and on Facebook, on LinkedIn. Really appreciate the opportunity here. As mentioned, the topic for today was going to be web platform migration. I went ahead and added a little disclaimer there. From here to there, web migration from a business perspective, because I am not an engineer. I'm not a technical expert. I've worked with a sufficient amount, as they say. I've stood on the shoulders of giants from a technical standpoint and have learned enough to be dangerous to myself and others, but I am no engineer by any stretch. And so, understanding web platform migrations from the business perspective, I think is important, because in the end, the decision to make a migration generally will sort of fall in the hands of business decision makers, even within the technical side of an organization, whether it be a VP of engineering or a chief digital officer or a chief technology officer. They're making business considerations as to whether they will continue or move forward with a web platform migration. Beside the hashtag girl dad introduction about me, a little bit of context for you guys why I would be giving this presentation. Primarily because I recall really painful experiences almost a decade ago now. It's been, God, it's surprising how quickly time flies. Almost a decade ago, I project managed the migrations of two websites. Some folks on here must be familiar with, Remax.com and travelchannel.com, two very well-known brands, very robust websites, and quite a bit of technology underlying both. You can imagine sort of in the late 2000s, roughly around 2010 or so, both of these, I was working with an organization where we helped both of these sites do platform migrations. And thinking back to, the challenges that we faced and the difficulties that came our way in terms of understanding content models, understanding content sort of schema, and leveraging existing technology stacks that had been put in place, very disjointed, very sort of siloed in many ways, trying to bring all of that together to create an actual new, stable, scalable, and safe, of course, from a security standpoint, platform was quite a challenge. A lot of manual, steps, a lot of Excel spreadsheets, unfortunately, a lot of just rudimentary processes that had to be undertaken in order to ensure a successful migration. Fast forward roughly 18 months for Remax and maybe about 12 months for Travel Channel, and we were able to complete the migrations. They weren't easy, but 18 months and 12 months are decades when you apply Murphy's Law and sort of start to understand how, or sorry, Moore's Law, right? And start to apply how quickly. That's my 18-month-old really dying to get in here. So apologize for that. So, understanding how the time scale of that migration in the context of what we're capable of doing today is critical. So I wanted to present that sort of a look back and as those two experiences, and just give some justification, I guess, for why I would be the one to give this presentation. So what is a CMS migration, right? It's really the process of migrating from one CMS platform to another. Historically, that's really just the simple bare bones definition. They also refer to it as replatforming. And there's generally three major components, right? There's the content and data analysis, there's the content data actual migration, and then there's the application build. And we'll get further into details of what each of those sort of three major pieces mean. But really, taking a step back, what drives the customer to consider a replatform or a migration? Sometimes in the case of some of my clients, not necessarily those two examples that I provided, sometimes it might be a rebrand, going through a sort of logo design brand overhaul. And it just makes sense to complement that with a technology sort of infrastructure that complements or parallels the new brand image. Cost of ownership of the current CMS, right? There's a lot of really heavy and costly CMS solutions out there that don't necessarily back out profitably for when once finance and technology teams get together and start to do the bean counting, so to speak, and realize that the cost of ownership of these existing CMS platforms, the cost of maintaining them, the cost of training and onboarding new team members, of upgrades, service and maintenance, and so on and so forth, it just ends up becoming a bit prohibitive. Third, driving towards open source is generally speaking one of the reasons that we at Acquia will see folks want to make a migration, right? Because they realize, well, that there's some efficiencies and some gains to be had by going open source, and cost is definitely one of them. And end of life CMS sort of challenges, right? So there are a couple examples there, Adobe Experience Manager 6.3, SDL, Tridian, SharePoint. These are all examples of CMS that have reached sort of the end of life stage. And that being said, folks who are sitting on those platforms will generally need to pretty quickly and sort of definitively come to a migration conversation and determine what their next best platform is going to be. You can imagine after investing years and probably hundreds, if not millions of dollars into those platforms, it's a hard pill to swallow. That okay, I've got to now find another platform that's going to be able to grow with my business. So also one of the reasons that a lot of folks will consider open source. And so one of the pieces of my introduction that I forgot to mention is that I run West Coast partnerships for Acquia. Acquia is a digital experience platform, the only open source digital experience platform, uh, and I am based in San Diego, California. Just a quick heads up. Moving right along, right? What are the components of a successful CMS migration? I'm pretty sure that's the last bit of introduction that I have to do. So hopefully nothing else comes up. Um, Unless you guys want to talk about R2D2 and C3PO over my shoulder, but what are the components of a successful CMS migration, right? I think this schematic gives a pretty broad definition of what a typical CMS migration sort of is going to look like. There's an initial catalyst for change right over on the left side of your screen there. Something like we mentioned, it's either going to be a rebrand or a cost cutting effort or end of life scenario for an existing CMS implementation. But something is going to trigger the need for CMS migration. And as I mentioned, right, there are these sort of different processes within the migration effort, the contents and data analysis and the actual migration. And then down at the bottom there, you see the application build. And we'll come back to this diagram a couple times throughout this presentation, but I just wanted to sort of put it out there just so visually speaking, and I'm a visual learner, so I'm hoping there's other folks on here that are the same. So kind of having this in the back of your mind as we go through the next couple of slides, and we'll come back to this, I think will probably help folks to sort of understand where I'm approaching this conversation. So moving right along. What are the risks associated with migrating, right? As I mentioned earlier, right, there are infinite number of decisions and effort and resources, I guess you could say, that go into establishing and maintaining an existing MarTech infrastructure, and to have to sort of marry what you've been working on, sort of in a silo for the last 10, 20 years in some cases, 30 years in some cases, and trying to match that with a new data model. It can be quite cumbersome and very, very prone to human error, technology error, security risks, so on and so forth. So these huge differences in the data model make migrations really complex. Even in the cases of simple rebuilds of a website, right, just copying an existing site over to a new platform, sometimes the business needs aren't met. So a cookie cutter solution just won't necessarily scale or provide all of the potential sort of levers that could be used to help scale a business in every platform, right? And so having flexibility there, having customization capabilities there is really important. Some vendors just lack the necessary connectors. So, going from a smaller known, less frequently used CMS platform to something that is more ubiquitous, it ends up being a challenge because the connectors just don't exist to be able to pull the data directly in. So it ends up becoming like I mentioned, in some cases, a very manual procedure prone to error. So the speed at which you can sort of progress through that migration process varies tremendously. As in the two examples I gave, 12 months and 18 months were actually, pretty commonplace back then. That was a normal sort of timeline that you would look to do a migration of a multi-million page site. So things have come a long way, fortunately, and we'll get to that. But I think having a well-defined migration strategy, bullet point number 5 there is important as well. And I'm not going to go through the full list. I think by now you guys have probably scanned all through most of these, if not all of them. So in other words, right, replatforming is time-consuming, right? It's complex, very disruptive to business process, to technology adoption, to just overall team onboarding. There's so many other issues. It touches on every aspect of the organization, and right down to the customer's experience, of course. So which can lead to high costs, obviously, loss of value perception. A lot of times companies will blame the technology instead of the existence of a proper migration process. And that ends up being a point of contention within an organization, right? Chief digital officer, VP of engineering, for instance, CTO, will make a decision that we need to go through a migration in order to reap the benefits of a new platform. it'll take some time to get through that migration. It'll take a lot of effort. It'll take a lot of man hours, woman hours, just labor, and a lot of capital investment to get to a point where finally folks on the front facing or external facing side of the organization, executive, marketing, sales, customer success, and so forth, will actually be able to reap the benefits of that replatform. So that time period becomes very sort of contentious within an organization. And it's important. So it's important to have a sound migration process that goes through the steps really efficiently with a fair amount of communication, right, internally. Can it be simplified? Right? This is the diagram I showed you guys earlier. Can it be simplified? We talked about the catalyst for change, reduction in cost, enhancing the brand, increasing agility, leveraging new technologies, end of life scenarios in some instances. Can it all be simplified? And so one of the reasons I brought this diagram up earlier is to show you it can actually be pretty simplified. When you look at it in this context, right, there's really sort of two parallel paths that can be undertaken. And as long as you go through this sort of sequential method of, we'll start at the top left there, right, defining the CMS and the content and the data analysis process, which is really defined, which is really just saying what is going to be what is our existing CMS hold? What does it contain? What sorts of data are we pulling into the existing instance of the CMS, and how can we sort of leverage the existing data pool that we have and the existing assets that we have and the existing content that we have. Going into, sorry, and that's the definition of it, right? Defining the CMS. Executing the content and data analysis is the actual task of sort of going through and doing that analysis. Sort of next up, not sure if you guys can see my cursor, but right, output the extracted data model and the content, and then determining the process for the content and data migration, right? Pretty high level steps, but nonetheless, if we think of it sequentially in this method, you're effectively just going through the contents and data analysis and the migration. And then sort of finishing off with the content and data migration. In parallel, you're working on the application build, but we'll get to that, right? Just kind of jumping ahead of myself here. One of the unfortunate parts of Google Sheets, at least from my experiences, I can't find a good presenter view that allows me to see both screens, but it is what it is. So content and data analysis and migration, we talked about this, right? We're going to move right along to the actual application build, right? Identifying what the business goals are, right? Aligning them to the new CMS platform. We've had a sort of standard operating procedures for the existing platform for however amount of time we've been on it. But let's identify what the business goals are, which one were probably the catalyst for driving this new platform initiative. And two, where can we attain additional data points and achieve additional business goals that maybe we haven't been focused on in the past. So let's identify what those are and figure out how the new application, the new platform can help us sort of generate that data and be able to leverage that data pool for business purposes. Going right into planning the application build, right? Leveraging the data and the content analysis and speccing out the platform build requirements. Mission critical, really important part, sort of really important step in the process to bring in both the technology folk and the business folk to make sure that both sides of the house are in communication, ensuring that the priorities are well established, that there is a sort of a roadmap, right, of what this migration is going to look like, and that they got buy-in, right? It's very important, buy-in at the highest levels of the organization and down to, the sort of the day-to-day folks that are actually in the system, in the platform interacting. They should have a voice within this conversation. Sort of last step, building CMS application, right? What is the business logic? What is the overall presentation in terms of UI and sort of user experience? And what are some of the third-party integrations that are going to be necessary, right? This is becoming much more of a commonplace feature across digital experience platforms and CMS options out there. And so it's very important to incorporate that into the internal discussion as well for the application build. So why do I keep mentioning Acquia? Well, I am sort of, I'm giving this presentation primarily because I'm amazed at how effectively Acquia's solutions have addressed the major pain points of the migration. I started this presentation talking about travelchannel.com and remax.com and the migration experience that we went through almost a decade ago and how manual and time consuming it was. And what Acquia has been able to do, right, is create a package of solutions eh, labeled as Acquia Migrate Analyze, Acquia Migrate Replatform, and down here at the bottom, Acquia Migrate Accelerate, right? These three solutions effectively allow the analysis portion, right, the replatforming portion, as well as and the transitioning from Drupal 7 on up to Drupal 9 to take place in a really quick and easy to understand method. So effectively, what Acquia Migrate does is breaks it down into the three sort of steps that I mentioned earlier, right? Analysis, right? The value here is you get to quickly and easily understand all the data that exists within your current CMS platform. Imagine that, just getting a full data dump of everything that exists in the existing instance of your CMS, so that then you can go through and sort of prioritize, identify different content types, different types of sort of schema and ontology. If you've got that sort of baked into your content strategy. And then Acquia Migrate Replatform, right, allows you to automate the data migration from CMS-X, right, any CMS, right, into Drupal, right? This accelerates the timelines, obviously, and minimizes risks. But the idea is that what Drupal, because Acquia sits on the Drupal platform, right? Because Drupal is open source, it allows so much more connectivity, so much more robust interlinking between the different platforms that effectively you're not limited by any stretch of the imagination. So, there are connectors for non-Drupal CMS platforms, of course, right? That includes Adobe Experience Manager and Sitecore and Bloomreach, Documentum, Oracle Web Center. And the list goes on and on and on and on, right? So being able to leverage your existing content sort of assets and migrate them effectively into a new CMS platform, i.e. Drupal, leveraging Acquia technologies and resources is going to be something that makes this whole process a lot less painful, right? So moving right along, just shift around some notifications that I'm getting here, because I thought I'd turn these off. Cool. There we go. Cool. Sort of just a mapping of what that would look like, right? You've got pretty much any CMS here on the left side. I just read off a few examples, Adobe or Sitecore, Bloomreach, and so on and so forth. And the Acquia Migrate platform, helps accelerate the analysis portion, helps accelerate the migration portion. And as you go through the replatform migration, you end up with a site that sits on an open source platform that can now connect to almost an infinite number of different platforms. And so you've got no sort of brick wall containing your MarTech stack. You've got this almost complete flexibility, and this solution is designed for migration, right? There are over 200 plus out-of-the-box functions, right? These are all functions, as I mentioned earlier. 10 years ago, we would have had to do these manually, individually, and again, prone to human error, so much more time and effort, whereas now you've got automated solutions that can take care of this migration pretty effectively. Sort of just a step-by-step breakdown of what the initiation, installation, and configuration, and the extraction and analysis portions look like as you go through this site migration exercise. I won't bore you with the details of this. Happy to talk through the details. Obviously, feel free to reach out to me via LinkedIn and so on and so forth. But you get some key deliverables, right? Understanding what the project plan looks like, looking at the actual installation of the Acquia migration toolkit, testing the connectors, performance results for the testing that takes place. You get a content analysis report, right, that actually outputs where sort of the existing content structure is situated and how it's organized. And just kind of what the analysis portion looks like is, you extracting your content and data, you're understanding your content and data, and then you're optimizing and auditing your content. That initial step is critical as you sort of move on into the next stages of replatforming, right? The replatform stage really involves that mapping that needs to occur from a data and a rule selection standpoint, mapping out the infrastructure, mapping out the structure of the metadata. And again, I can go into much more detail, but you've got the selection and mapping, transformation. There's obviously a major Q&A portion that involves testing of the platform, and then actual production import, right? Hitting the go live switch, so to speak, which is always a fun experience because there's almost, it's never going to be 100% success when you go live. There's going to be some stuff that got missed. There's going to be some items over the course of the next hours, days, or weeks that have to be subsequently migrated. And so the reporting aspect is important there, having visibility into how a migration sort of completed and what were the net advantages that were gained from the experience. Oh, let me go back to this one. Last point, right? The last item was just key deliverables in terms of the replatform solution that Acquia offers, right? There's the migration planning, there's migration design, transformation reports, migration test results. A lot of sort of data needs to go into post-migration experience in order to fully be able to identify the benefits that were gained from the actual migration. So, just being able to monitor systems, being able to monitor content, different types of assets that were leveraged through the or that were transitioned through the migration pages, right? Making sure you don't orphan any pages on the site, major issue. This is sort of the catch-all replatform slide. It's obviously sales deck, right? So, one of the Acquia Migrate Solution Accelerate actually is designed specifically to help Drupal customers who are on Drupal 7 and want to, upgrade to Drupal 8, Drupal 9. So it's for existing, it's for existing instances of the Drupal CMS, right? So just bear that in mind. Again, fancy sales slide, got to have it in there. It's important. And as we went through this sort of roadmap of what a typical migration should look like, we kind of just filled in different sections, right? The catalyst for change. We talked about the reasons that an initial CMS migration might be undertaken. We talked about some of the issues within the content and data analysis and the migration, right, in terms of selection of platforms and mapping of data, transformation of scripts and transformation of even content types from one platform to the next, testing and Q&A, of course. And then we talked about, so it was leveraging the content analysis and to spec out the platform build requirements, working with the business side as well as with the technology side of the organization to ensure that all facets and all aspects of the user experience and the site sort of instance are factored into the equation. Building the CMS application, right? What is the business logic? How does that presentation actually come about? What does it look like? What is the UIX? And obviously, what additional third-party applications need to be integrated? What APIs need to be established? Connectors, right? And so, and I think that's it. I think I flew through that, so I might be in under my time, but I think that sort of summarizes what the overall, I think, goals and objectives of a proper CMS migration should be. I'd love to open it up for Q&A. We can talk about. I can answer questions about actual site migrations. I can answer probably some anecdotal questions about Acquia. I might sort of take those questions offline to be able to follow up with you directly, just by nature of the fact that I've only been with Acquia now for a month and a half. And I'm still sort of getting the details of the actual offering. But from a migration standpoint, from my personal experience and my professional opinion, of course, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Walid. So this is used across all domains of customers, or you have any restrictions on that, on the Acquia solution?
No restrictions. Again, one of the luxuries of open source, right? And in addition to it being open source and fully flexible and able to connect with pretty much any platform out there, Acquia as an organization has gone through all of the necessary sort of security and certifications to be able to operate both within a federal, state, local, educational, HIPAA, health related, finance related. So all the certifications that would be necessary for a digital experience platform to operate within any one of those verticals, no limitations. So yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any more question? Anyone? And thank you, Walid, for that informative session. And just to let everybody know that we have these webinars every week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday from 12 to 1 p.m. EST, and we have it too again on Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. EST. And for tomorrow, the topic is the life cycle of artificial intelligence, machine learning, learn how to execute data science projects from beginning to end. And on Friday, we have an amazing topic by the youth. It would be take chances, make mistakes, get messy, and of course, succeed. Importance of coming out of your comfort zone and doing something unique. So, yeah, those are the topics for the next 2 days. And if you have any questions or you want to connect with us, please email us at webinar@letustalkit.com. With that, I'll ask Vamshi, is there any question or comment in the YouTube, Facebook?
No.
Not right now? Okay.
I was that thorough apparently. So, or I spoke so fast that nobody could keep up with me.
No, I think it was we fairly understood. That's a structured presentation. Thank you, Walid.
I'm just going to assume I was so thorough that I left no questions unanswered. So
that is true as well.
I think everybody's attention span in a post-COVID world has become very limited. So I don't blame folks. Honestly, if there's any questions, feel free to reach out. I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Facebook. I'm there. Look, just Google Walid Rashid. That's me.
Okay, so yeah, definitely. No, we'll stay in touch, and there are always these projects going on, and we have. I mean, one of the most recent projects that we were dealing with, is building a React.js front end and SAP backend, portal.
Yeah.
For kind of an order entry management. So like that, yeah, we come across various kinds of scenarios. So definitely, yeah, we'll keep this in mind based on the size of the customer for any kind of collaboration.
Yeah, I can see a lot of instances where there might be a need for a digital experience platform to supplement that solution. So yeah, definitely reach out, because I mean, as part of my job is just that, right? Identifying other great technology and service and solution providers, and figuring out how we can both sort of go to market, and be more effective in that process. So whether it's reaching out to specific customers together and offering a joint solution, or offering the Acquia solution and then having the partner that we work with, you go in and actually do the implementation and maybe some of the strategic guidance, data analysis, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of ways I think that we can leverage a platform like Acquia, and the fact that it sits on Drupal, which is completely open source, and one of the most robust open source community on the web, I think is speaks volumes for what's capable. So do your research, ask the questions that are necessary, and I hope everybody all across the world is being safe, and thank you for hosting this event, very socially distanced and very safe.
I have one more question, Walid. I'm just looking at the website of Acquia. So now, what are some of your differentiators, compared to other players in the same space? What are the differentiators of Acquia?
Well, I think the primary differentiator for Acquia is that flexibility and that scalability that can be had with an open source platform. There's, if you think of the sales team at Acquia likes to refer to our competition sort of these walled gardens, right? And the garden is beautiful on the inside of those walls, but you're still sitting within a wall, and you're not able to interact with any major platforms outside of the one that you've signed up for. Whereas with the Acquia solution that sits on the open source Drupal, you've got flexibility, you've got connectivity, extendability. So the idea is, if you invested in a Drupal implementation, maybe through Acquia 10 years ago, every evolutionary, right, every technology evolution that has occurred in digital experience over the course of the last 10 years, you could take advantage of, because we have that flexibility built into the system, because of its open source nature, right? And whereas other competitors that we have, and I'll be outright with it and say, like Adobe Experience Manager or the Sitecores of the world, right? You've bought into a walled garden. You bought into a specific set of features and functions that organization determines and prioritizes how and when it'll roll out and make available. Never mind the cost associated with that. So there's definitely an advantage that our customers see from a cost standpoint. So our customers, they run the gambit. Like I said, we've got federal, certifications, because the White House's website that sits on Acquia is a perfect example. And Whole Foods, right? Their site runs on Acquia. So I think there's a lot of great examples from across industry and across even the government, public, and federal sort of sectors that demonstrate how extensible and how flexible the Acquia solution is. And so that's definitely one of our competitive advantages, is just being completely open and able to help scale an organization and extend an organization into the future, no matter what changes. Because honestly, your guess at what is going to be the next technology revolution or evolution is as good as ours. We might have a closer, pulse on what's happening within digital experience, but in general, who could have anticipated the revolution that mobile, would have 10 years ago? Well, a couple of folks did, right? They invested early. But in reality, 10, 20 years down the line, it's anybody's guess. And so having a platform that's scalable and flexible, I think, is critical.
Sure. Thank you very much for detailed answer. Thanks a lot.
No worries. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, Walid, and thank you, Srini. Since you were asking how many people, just now I checked Facebook. Vamshi, correct me if I'm wrong, 70, it has reached to almost 73 people here, and it will increase for sure.
So 73 of you. 73 plus.
Yes, and it will definitely increase. But thank you so much, Walid, for your time. I know your time is precious right now, and wish you all the very best with your two kids and your new job. And we hope that you have a wonderful day ahead today. So
Likewise.
Thank you so much.
Wishing everybody the best. Be safe, be healthy, be good to each other. Lord knows the planet needs it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Very much.
Thank you, everyone, for joining in. And please do check us out again tomorrow at 12 p.m. EST. Trust me, it will be a great session. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.